I think a lot of our listeners are probably wondering whether to take the plunge into the world of dropshipping or online business. And so I think today's episode would be particularly helpful to understand what it looks like on the other side of that once you do have one up and running.
Before I got onto my e-commerce journey, you go back to bed that night and you look back at the day and you think, well, I've sort of got through it.
That's what a lot of people do, I think, but night and day compared to how life looks now. But talk us through what a typical day in the life of James looks like now.
And from wherever in the world, I can still make sure my businesses are running with a few hours a week, if that. I could keep it right down to half an hour a day or less than that if I really wanted to.
I now have children, so my morning routine's a bit different now. I've got 2 young boys, so I can take the oldest to nursery, and that's quite fulfilling for me as well, knowing that I'm, one of the only dads at the school gate that's able to do that because the rest of them are at work. For me, the success of a location-independent business or a semi-automated dropshipping business is knowing that it operates just as well without you as with you there. Something else that might be quite helpful for people if you're in the position where you think, I'd really like to be able to take a month away and my business not just go up in flames, and have everything break. Welcome to the Dropship Unlocked Podcast, where we unlock the secrets to high-ticket dropshipping and achieving financial freedom. I'm Lewis Smith, founder of Dropship Unlocked, and I'm joined by James Eardley, client success coach at Dropship Unlocked. Each episode, we'll be sharing our experiences and providing you with the tools you need to build a successful e-commerce empire of your own. From zero to owning £1 million online business, we'll help you achieve the ultimate freedom over your time, location, and financial future. And when we're not recording the podcast episodes or running our own e-commerce businesses, you'll find us helping people like you launch their own high-ticket dropshipping businesses. To learn more about working with us, head over to dropshipunlocked.com/free. Now sit back, relax, and get ready to access your full potential with the Dropship Unlocked podcast. Hi everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the podcast. So in today's episode, James and I thought it would be helpful for you if we ran through what a typical day in the life of a dropshipping entrepreneur looked like, because I know that might be interesting to those of you who are wondering, what does it look like once one of these businesses is up and running? So in today's episode, we're going to dive into what it looks like a day in the life of a dropshipping entrepreneur.
That's right. Let's go behind the scenes today, Lewis. So let's have a think about what we do day to day on a usual day as a dropshipping business owner, and share everything from morning routines all the way through to our usual work schedules, what we get up to, what we keep busy with, and also what we do when we don't want to work as well. And also at the end of the video, we're going to go through the tools and strategies that we'd recommend how to run a business effectively and how to make sure you've got as much outsource as you can so you can focus on just working on the parts of the business that you really enjoy and really, really thrive at.
Definitely. So I think a lot of our listeners are probably wondering whether to take the plunge into the world of dropshipping or online business. And so I think today's episode would be particularly helpful to understand what it looks like on the other side of that once you do have one up and running. So before we dive into that, James, maybe you can share with us a little bit about what your day-to-day routine looked like prior to starting a dropshipping business, just for comparison.
Definitely. Yeah, I'll give some context to how my life has changed over the last few years. So we'll go back to before I got onto my e-commerce journey. So for me, that was around 2019. So I'll pick out a day in 2019, a usual day, and we'll go through what I got up to in 2019 before I started any sort of dropshipping, any sort of e-commerce. So I had a typical 9-to-5 job. I had done a university course and got myself a job in a 9-to-5 job at a housing association in my local town. And I thought, brilliant. I've set up now myself with a 9-to-5 steady income, but I was quite unfulfilled with this job. So I knew there was something more. But the typical day looked like I had to be in the office at 8 a.m. So I'd get up at 7 a.m. So I wouldn't give myself any extra time. I'd be up at 7 a.m. I'd have a shower, have my breakfast, and quickly jump in the car. And I had about a 25-30 minute car drive into my office that I'd get into. So it was all a bit of a rush, quickly get into the office and then sit down at my desk for the next 8 to 9 hours until about 4:30, where I would just be focused on my 9-to-5 job at a typical housing association. And that job couldn't be any further from an e-commerce business. In fact, it was a not-for-profit housing association, a lot of ex-council stock that we looked after, and there was nothing that would actually link myself to an e-commerce business owner, nothing I could really learn. Although now looking back at it, I realised that a lot of the just sort of workplace routines that I picked up still come in handy to this day. And then after I finished my day at work, I'd get home, I'd be tired after a day of work, I'd have my tea, I'd probably read a book, some sort of self-improvement book or business book, because I knew I was always interested in that sort of that line of work, and I always had it in my mind that one day I'd love to be an entrepreneur. And then I'd maybe watch TV or play video games with friends or something along those lines. And then it would be a case of repeating that then for 5 days, and then have the weekend afterwards where I'd end up just being relaxing because I had a busy week at work. So hopefully that paints a picture of a typical day in my life, sort of a 9 to 5 worker essentially. And that was my sort of routine that I repeated then through Monday through to Friday.
Yeah, absolutely. I can definitely relate to that. And it's, very much rinse and repeat, I think, when you're in that pattern, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, that's it. And it's sort of, you go back to bed that night and you look back at the day and you think, well, I've sort of got through it. I haven't really felt like I've pushed myself, certainly not myself. I never felt like I would really push into my potential, getting closer to like the goals I had or the dreams I had. But I knew that I just had to go back the next day and do the same thing again, essentially. How about you, Lewis? Was it a similar experience for yourself?
Yeah, I think it was. I mean, I can certainly relate to the 9 to 5, the commute in the car, getting up early, maybe up at 6, leave at 7, into the office for 8, 8:30, get a coffee, sit down at the desk, kind of try, like, probably open up the inbox, which is probably the least productive thing you can do, in terms of actually getting anything done, and then just like let the inbox dictate where the day went. And it's funny to think back now how out of my control my time was. It was basically other people's priorities were controlling my time. So yeah, there was a period of my life where I was doing that for a few years. And there were also periods of my life where I worked for a company, as I mentioned previously, a big medical American company, and they were very, very flexible. Like they had a great lifestyle balance in terms of the company, but there was always this feeling of like, I used to describe it as like a cloud of guilt, because you'd be able to work from home and it was fine, but the reality is when you work from home, you're not like 100% productive the whole time, every second of the day, right? No one can, but you have like hours of productivity, and then you need a bit of time out, just as you would in an office. And I think I used to feel a little bit like, if I'd worked from like 9 till 11 solidly and just needed half an hour of like fresh air, you could go out and no one would blame you for it. But I'd always used to feel this level of like guilt, being like, what if someone called me during this time? And like, how would I explain that I'm not, at my desk? And there was never like a clear boundary between being able to tune out of that job. So even though they gave us the flexibility, it's incomparable to running your own business. Like now I can be anywhere in the world and be able to run my business. But yeah, back then I think that was pretty similar. It would be get up, go to the gym, into the office, get a coffee, spend the day in the office, get some lunch in the canteen, have some small talk with people that I worked with, drive home listening to the radio, stuck in rush hour, get back home and, make some dinner, and then like an hour of TV or something before bed. And that's kind of it. And then it's like rinse and repeat Monday to Friday, living for the weekend, but not really like using your full potential or enjoying life necessarily, just kind of following the motions because you think that's what you have to do. So yeah, that was my journey.
I can certainly relate to that feeling of guilt. And it's, even though you know that there's no real issue with you taking a break from your work, but it's knowing that somebody's potentially breathing down your neck or thinking about what you're doing at any given moment, and you don't really have full control. So when you work hard, brilliant, you're fully at work, but then when you take some time as a break, maybe you're working from home and you go for a walk to get some fresh air, there's that thought in the back of your mind like, oh, I should be at my desk now, or is the phone going to call, or am I going to get an instant message on Slack or something to try and, something you need to get back to your office for and start working on. So it was that feeling of lack of control, and you sort of alluded to that as well when you get in and you look at the inbox and you've got that inbox dread, which I used to feel as I got out my car, and how much is going to be in today, or what's going to come through the inbox today, and where am I going to be pushed and pulled from the sort of jobs that come up, which you're not quite sure of when you first go into your job. But there's that lack of control really over where you go. So waiting for that something to drop in your inbox, and then that's what's going to dictate your day that day. And then just, essentially do that job and then turn up the next day and then see where you're going to be taken the next day as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's It's what a lot of people do, I think, but night and day compared to how life looks now. So maybe take us through now now that you do have an e-commerce business up and running, because you joined us as a member of Dropship Unlocked whilst you were working your previous job. So you were one of our members. You got your business up and running successfully. You're obviously now part of the Dropship Unlocked team, but talk us through like what a typical day in the life of James looks like now.
That's right. So there's a whole sort of journey and story from going from where I was to where I am now. And that all involves obviously getting in touch with Dropship Unlocked, going through the program, setting up my business to the point where I could leave my 9-to-5 job and now work full-time as a business owner. And essentially I say full-time, but as you'll hear now from my 9-to-5 routine that I go through now, or my daily routine, it's far from like full-time, I'd say, in terms of how much I've been able to outsource the jobs of looking after and running the day-to-day operations of my business. So typical day-to-day now. So I will wake up earlier than I used to wake up, even though I'm not tied to any sort of job and I haven't got somebody looking at the clock and waiting for me to clock in at a certain time in the office, but I still wake up earlier now. And I'll go through a morning routine, which typically lasts for me about half an hour or so. And we can go into this at length, but my morning routine essentially gives me some time at the start of the morning just for myself. So before I work on any tasks or anything that needs to be done, it's a chance for me to get myself set up for the day. So we'll go through a whole routine of sort of visualization, or knowing where I'm going, knowing what I want to do for the day, making sure I know what my plans are, what my goals are for the day. There's some gratitude as well, and make sure it's important to be grateful for everything that we've got right now. So it's not just a focus on what we haven't got and what we're trying to achieve. And that half an hour really to myself and get myself in the right headspace just sets me up then for the rest of the day. And then by that time it's maybe 7 o'clock, 7:30, and I'll go and take the dog out, let him get out, have a little walk around the local area where I am. And that gives me some fresh air, chance again to clear my mind and get myself in the right headspace for the day. And then I'll come back, breakfast, shower, etc. And then I'll sit at my desk, whether that's in my apartment or whether I go to a local cafe or a residential lounge or somewhere I can pick up my laptop and start working from anywhere essentially. Then I'll do my most important task. So this is the one that I alluded to in the morning routine, where I'll identify there's one most important task that I need to get done today for today to be a success. And I picked up this technique, or this sort of idea, from the book Deep Work by Cal Newport, and the idea of allowing maybe 2 to 3 hours a day where you are sort of away from distractions and focusing on one most important task. It's also talked about in the book called The One Thing as well. So both of those books, highly recommend. And it just makes sure you can be completely focused on the tasks that are really going to be the needle movers. So for me in my business right now, that might be signing suppliers. It might be improving my marketing strategies, improving the campaigns that I'm running to generate sales. Or it might be looking at branding, conversion rate optimization. It varies. It's not the same every day. It's something that I want to work on. It's something that I know will really push my business on and move the needle. Then when I've completed that, the afternoon is always the more relaxed tasks that need to be done. So checking in with my VA, paying any invoices that are due to suppliers, those types of jobs that don't require the same level of brain power, but they're jobs that need to be done just to make sure that everything runs smoothly. And then at the end of the day, I'll aim to go to the gym 4 or 5 days a week. I'll go to the gym around sort of 4:30, 5 o'clock and have a gym session to look after myself as well. Then it's food and then relax in the evening with my girlfriend. So that hopefully gives you an idea. It's a lot more control. It's a lot more in my control about what I do and when I do it, compared to the memories I have now of my 9-to-5 job before I got into the e-commerce world.
Yeah, fantastic. It's it sounds like a much better routine and something that, as you said, you're much more in control of and can dictate how you feel for the day. So yeah, it's not identical to mine, but there are definitely some similarities there for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be interested to hear, Lewis, about your sort of typical day. Obviously similar, running an e-commerce store as well as the other businesses you've got, as well as Dropship Unlocked. So how do you manage to manage your day sort of effectively?
Yeah, so I think my morning routine has probably changed a bit. Certainly changed a bit since having children, but I guess I can probably paint the picture of what it looked like prior to having children, and then what it looks like now as well, because there'll be people listening to this who do and don't have children. So I think it'll be helpful for both. So I've always been a pretty early riser. Like I'll get up at 6. I'm exercise in the morning kind of guy. Like I'll go out for a run at 6, put on some music, put on the podcast, just run. I like to kind of beat the rest of the world, like get out there before the streets are busy. Right now I'm in Dubai, so like went for a run on the beach this morning and was able to like get out before it got really hot and tourists were everywhere. So that was nice. And then, I think from there I'd go and get a coffee. I'd probably at some point, sit down and like kind of think about what the priorities are for the day. That was easier to do when there were 2 children that were running around, but I would like get out a piece of paper and just write down like what are the core things that I need to do. And I actually do that usually the night before. So it's really just checking. So I kind of plan what I'm going to do the next day so that I can kind of subconsciously mull those thoughts over in my mind while you're kind of drifting off to sleep, because sometimes the great thoughts come to you then. So that's quite a good one, I think, that primes me, that when I wake up, I'm like, yep, I already know what I've got to do, how I'm going to do it. And like you say, that big thing that's going to move the needle the most on the business. So from there, I'd have a coffee. I would go and probably pick up my laptop and then either work at the home office or I'd go and work at a co-working space local to me, or I might go and get a coffee with a friend and maybe we get the laptops out there and work. Typically, I'll have a couple of calls throughout the day. So as you say, I'm running e-commerce businesses, but I'm now also running Dropship Unlocked, so an e-learning educational business where we help people start e-commerce businesses. So it's quite nice because some of my businesses are like case studies for the other one. So it's like what I'm doing in the e-commerce stores, I'm at the forefront. I'm learning this stuff. I'm finding out about new apps, new marketing channels, new strategies. And then I'm seeing what works, and then I'm able to say to the team, okay, that's really good. We're going to teach that now in Dropship Unlocked, and that's going to be the thing that our members can benefit from. So they're constantly updating that program with things that we're learning firsthand work really well. And in terms of like the types of calls, I'd probably jump on a call with like my VAs who run our stores pretty much full time. Like I'd say, it's funny, they call it the 4-hour work week. It doesn't have to even be that, it could be the 2-hour work week if you really wanted it to be. If you're in maintenance mode and you're not aggressively trying to grow and you're just happy, like cruising along at a steady profit per month, then absolutely you can take some time off. I'm on holiday at the moment with family in Dubai. I'm not doing a huge amount of work stuff other than this podcast, but I like doing these, so that's fine. And it's just the ability and the freedom and the flexibility to go wherever. So I now have children, so my morning routine's a bit different now. I've got 2 young boys, so I can take the oldest to nursery, and that's quite fulfilling for me as well, knowing that I'm one of the only dads at the school gate that's able to do that, because the rest of them are at work, right? As once your paternity leave finishes, that's typically what happens. So that's really nice to be able to do that. That's something that for me is very important. That family always comes first. The reason why I'm running these businesses is for my family, so I like to be able to do that. We'll go and pick up my son later on from nursery, and I'll probably go out for lunch somewhere with Becky, my wife. And then, in the evening, we'll cook, watch some TV, put the kids to bed, and plan our next trip. Something like we're talking already about in January, heading out to Mexico for the month. So these are like, I guess we kind of call them workcations or mini retirements. And it's a concept again from the 4-hour work week book, but it's like we don't have to just go on 2-week holidays where we fully tune out of work and that's it for the year. That's your break. Instead, you go on longer extended trips where maybe you do a bit of work and you do kind of like experience what it's like to live in a different place. And so that's what we're doing at the moment. And a typical day for me pretty much runs like that. I might have another couple of calls in the afternoon with things related to the e-learning business, to Dropship Unlocked, maybe with our media buyer team or with some of our coaching team or whatever that might be. And then we'll often have the 2 weekly live Q&A calls as well with our members in the program, where we can jump on and help members with any issues that they're having, getting up and running, and celebrate some of their wins with them. So for me, it's way more fulfilling than the routine that I used to have. I'm way more in control of it. It gives me freedom, flexibility, and none of it would be possible without having started e-commerce businesses, in the first place. So I'm very thankful to be able to have this new routine.
Yeah, I think that's the key to it, isn't it? Is the freedom and the choice that it does allow you. So if you wanted to just sit back and just enjoy the profit that the business brings in, you could literally take it right down to a few hours a week, just making sure suppliers are paid, and your VA knows what to do, and you've set the policies up, you've set the processes up, and they can just run everything for you. So there's that choice. The only reason I'm involved and I really have some focused work every morning on my business is so that I can keep pushing it and keep growing. And I know there's much more, I can do and achieve. And so that's why I'm so keen to keep pushing. But like you say, there's no longer like a requirement for like desperate for a 2-week annual leave break that we can just switch off and look forward to for 9 months of the year. Instead of that, I can still go away, and from wherever in the world, I can still make sure my businesses are running with a few hours a week. If that, I could keep it right down to half an hour a day or less than that if I really wanted to. But then I enjoy jumping on, making sure that everything's running smoothly, just checking in with my VAs and making sure that everything's being looked after. So I enjoy that, and going away and doing it from anywhere in the world is an absolute pleasure, and it's a real luxury that running an e-commerce business can afford to us.
Something else that might be quite helpful for people, if you're in the position where you think, I'd really like to be able to take a month away and my business not just go up in flames, and have everything break. I think there are some things you could do ahead of time to make sure that your business is set up for success, even without you. For me, the success of a location independent business or a semi-automated dropshipping business is knowing that it operates just as well without you as with you there. If I'm there having to do something, I kind of think, well, something's wrong then. I'm in the way. Like, why am I having to get involved in a certain process? Because that's on me. I should have set that up so it can happen without me being there. And that takes a while to transition to, because initially when you start a business, you want to be in control of everything and you want to have oversight over everything. But I think eventually you'll get to the point where if you can relinquish control and hand over the reins to team members, to systems, to processes, it becomes so much more freeing in the long term. So we automate a lot of stuff in our e-commerce businesses and in our e-learning business actually as well. But we will make sure that we use things like Zapier to make sure one app will talk to another. So order fulfillment emails go out automatically. Abandoned cart emails and text messages go out automatically to customers. Orders get fulfilled automatically. We don't need a human oversight for those types of processes, because they're kind of set them up once and then they just repeat automatically. Anything that we can't yet automate, we have our virtual assistants take care of. So I do it myself the first time, and I do it really in depth, and I write an SOP, standard operating procedure, step by step. And then once I'm happy that that's exactly how I'd want it done, I put that into a project management tool like Asana, and then the virtual assistants can jump in and our team can go through it and do it step by step exactly how I would have done it. And then that way I come back and things are further ahead, and we've made more money on a trip away than the trip cost us, So it kind of you're almost being paid to be away from the business. You won't get there overnight, but it does happen. And with the right strategies and automation and outsourcing and a really good team, obviously, then you can absolutely bring that kind of reality to life.
Absolutely. I think having processes in place is the key. So as soon as you do a task once, record exactly how you've done that, and then you won't need to do that again, because you can pass that on to your virtual assistant, who can do it just as well as you, if not better, once they get familiar with the task and do it a few times. So as well as you putting in an SOP sheet that people can refer to in a project management tool, I'll also record myself doing every process throughout the business. So using a tool like Loom, where we can record our screen and record ourselves, I'll record step by step for every process. So I've done that once, I've done it to the best of my ability, and that can be replicated then day in, day out basis by your VA to make sure that everything runs smoothly without you needing to micromanage or keep an eye on everything. And you can then make sure that you can focus on the really important tasks, or go off and go to Dubai and have some time off, or take it easy, or go for a run, go to the gym, go to the park, and whatever you feel like doing. That's the beauty of setting up processes and allowing your team really to push the business forward. Another tip for me is focusing on your physical health and mental health is going to help you so much in terms of being able to run a business and grow. So it's the foundation to everything you do, and all the work you're able to do is because of the health that you have, and the way that you wake up in the morning is going to set the foundations for everything else that will come beyond that.
That's something that I think is underestimated by people. When people hear, oh, you go for a run every morning, that's nice for you, but I don't do that kind of thing. I can understand that, and it sounds preachy, and it sounds like, oh, great, you exercise every day. But the reason for me, there's no way I would have achieved what I have achieved without exercising pretty much daily. And that's because my mental state is so impaired compared to how I am when I'm operating after exercise. That kind of endorphin rush that you get, that, I'll go for a run, go and have a sauna, do like a cold plunge most mornings as well. I didn't mention that in the morning routine, but that's because it then just leaves me feeling so much better throughout the day, and I make much more rational decisions, and I'm just more optimistic about the whole thing. And so, yeah, I think one of the biggest tips that I could give people if they're looking for like, what's the hack to start a business? What's the tips, the strategies? Exercise every day and eat well and sleep well, and you will give yourself a huge advantage over your competition.
Absolutely. And to illustrate that point, I think about the last time that you had any sort of illness or you were ill, and watch how everything else just falls down around that. There's nothing you can do when you're lying in bed feeling, ill. And obviously we can't help illnesses. I'm not saying that you won't get ill, but looking after your physical and mental health is going to set you up so that the majority of your time, the time you're feeling on top of the world when you wake up, ready to go, and then you can achieve those difficult and large goals that you've got. So that is absolutely a focus for both of us, I think, is that physical and mental health. So yeah, take that on board, and also have a think about those resources that we mentioned. And something that's really helped me as well is having some sort of planner or a journal. And if you go onto Amazon, a plug is, we're not getting paid for this, but I fully recommend the Legend Planner, which you can find on Amazon. And it's a way of tracking your progress, setting your goals, and seeing clearly what you want to achieve and the habits that you want to follow. And that's been something that's been a huge change for me. Has come from that, using that planner and being able to see where I'm going and how I'm going to get there.
Yeah, I think, again, it sounds like woo-woo, doesn't it? It sounds wishy-washy, and people are like, oh yeah, you don't have to write these things down. I can just jot it in my phone or something. There's something about writing with a pen on physical paper, the old-fashioned way, that really like solidifies the thing that you're writing. So if you're writing like affirmations, for example, or if you're writing goals and you're writing things out, something that really forces your mind to like digest the thing that you're writing, really think about putting it to action. And it's, again, I think it gets missed by a lot of people who just think, I can just, I just know that I'll just think about it and it'll happen, but it's not the same. Just a quick heads up, if you'd like to share your questions, stories, successes or challenges, you can email us directly at podcast@dropshipunlocked.com. And you never know, we might even feature you on the next podcast episode.
Also, if you want access to today's show notes or any of the resources we've mentioned in the episode today, then head over to dropshipunlocked.com/podcast. We also have a small favour to ask of you. If you enjoyed the show so far, you could take a minute to leave us a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice.
You wouldn't believe how much your reviews help us grow the podcast. We'll even read out some of our favourites on the next episode. So if you want to be featured on the show, please do go ahead and leave us a review today. Thanks so much for your support. We really couldn't do it without you, and we absolutely love hearing what you think of the podcast.
Okay, so moving on to the section of the podcast where we answer your questions. So we've had some questions in, and the first one is in from Jamie, and he's asked, how do I overcome the feeling that it's a big risk to start a business?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I can have a go at this one. So I think in life, I think anything's a risk, right? It's a risk not starting a business, because the risk, as we mentioned in previous episodes, is that you remain doing what you're currently doing for the rest of your life and you forego your potential and happiness in the future. That for me is a way bigger risk than attempting to start a business and it not quite going to plan. So I think the first thing to say is there are risks whether you do or don't. So in my view, you might as well take a risk. And when the upside is that you potentially create a life-changing business that gives you freedom and flexibility forever. The risks can be mitigated and can be reduced with careful planning. If you're just going to try and piece it together from videos on YouTube and like have a go and stuff, like expect for things to go wrong and expect for it to become very expensive to fix as well. And even if you do it successfully, like expect to be kind of on your own trying to figure stuff out. I do think that, there's a reason why I created the Dropship Unlocked business, and it's so that people can navigate that path of least resistance to getting a business up and running quickly and inexpensively compared to trying to do it your own. People say, don't have to spend money on programs and stuff. And you're right, you don't. You could piece it together yourself if you have 5 years, a lot of patience and endless pots of money. But if you want to get it right the first time, don't reinvent the wheel, learn from people that have already done it and are still doing it every day, and join the 700 people that we have in Dropship Unlocked to get your business up and running within the next 6 weeks. Now, you'd say, of course you'd say that, and yeah, of course we would, but there's a reason why we do it. It's not, we don't just do it for fun. We do it because it really does help people and it works. I think the other thing you can do is research your market, and this kind of is something that we would cover in week 2 of the program. But if you really understand your market and you understand your competition and you understand why they're succeeding in the market and how you can too, your risk comes right down, because you're not having to go out there and try to create new demand or like reinvent the model. You're just kind of slotting into place and say, hey, here's the market. I'll just take a small slice of it. And as we said before, that could be a 6-7 figure business just taking a small percentage of market share. So that's a way of mitigating the risk. And I think as well, just having a clear plan as well for your business, having clear goals, having strategies, projecting out your finances, making sure you've got everything kind of laid out, will again reduce your risk. Because if something's off track and you're not on track to reach a certain goal, it's not just a case of like, okay, I start today and in a year I hope I succeed, and if I don't, well, I failed. It's like within 2 weeks I want to have my site built, within 3 weeks I want to have my first 5 suppliers signed, within 4 weeks I want to be running ads, within 5 weeks I want to be making sales, and within 6 weeks I want to have my first 5k month and hire a VA so I can step out the business. Like, those things are milestones that you can track your progress towards. And if you don't meet any one of them, that's okay, because you probably won't. Business is a bit of a rocky road, but it's much, much rockier if you're trying to go it all alone and you don't have clear goals laid out for you. So those are things that we set out inside the program. We give you those goals so that you can kind of just follow in the steps of many, many people who've done it before you.
Exactly. And that can bring your risk right down. Just having a proven process to follow that's been shown over and over again that it can create a business will just take that risk right down, compared to the alternative, which is going out and trying to start a business without any real experience, without learning from people who have done it before, and without any data behind the decisions you make. That's when you're really taking a risk. But if you follow a plan that's been proven over and over again, the risk comes right down. But risk is an interesting thing, because I realized before I started an e-commerce business that it's risky to do anything. It's risky to start a business. It's risky not to start a business. And in fact, the real turning point for me was when I realized it's more risky not to start a business, because the potential upside of not starting a business is so low, and there's so much downside as in not being fulfilled, not reaching your potential, that actually that became the more risky option. And starting a business was really the option that was going to give you much more upside and the right path to take. So it's a great question, Jamie. Hopefully that helps. And thank you for getting your questions in for the podcast today. And don't let yourself be held back by the fear that it sounds like you have, and keep pushing on to achieve the goals that you have. So next question we have in today, Lewis, is from Adele. And Adele has asked, there are lots of fake gurus online. So how do I overcome the overwhelm of who to trust?
Yeah, I feel your pain, Adele. There are a lot of fake gurus online, and it's a weird word. I've not really heard this term before I started an e-learning business, and then suddenly you see it everywhere, and it's like gurus here, gurus there. There's people standing in front of their villas and mansions and sports cars and telling you it's like simple to start a Shopify store and be up and running within a few weeks and making 6 figures and shipping products from China. I've never heard of anyone doing it with that model and succeeding that easily without huge amounts of issues. So I think the first thing to mention is, if it sounds too good to be true and they're not telling you the full picture and the downsides, then tread carefully. We will never say to you, hey, it's going to be smooth sailing, Adele, it's going to be easy and like you can have no problems. I'll tell you right now, there will be issues, there will be frustrations. You feel like you're banging your head against the wall sometimes, like, why can't I get this to work? But it's much, much harder trying to do it on your own and not having a group of people around you. So yeah, hopefully that's one thing to consider, and I'm sure you already know that. I think the other thing is just knowing who to trust, right? So have a look at the companies that you're considering working with, and just ask yourself, firstly, check out some of their testimonials. Do they have videos of people who are talking about the success that they've had with them? Do they have a abundance of reviews of them? Do they have people who can vouch for their coaching, for example? A lot of these programs will just leave you with a list of pre-recorded videos and be like, okay, good luck. Or they might say, hey, you can join, but you have to then pay for any access to coaching. Obviously with Dropship Unlocked, we have 2 weekly coaching calls that you can join. You can ask questions live. You're not just locked to a chat box. You can actually jump on Zoom and chat. And I think that's what you need. It's that level of mentorship and guidance and tailored support, which a lot won't give you. So just look into the background of the self-proclaimed gurus and just ask, firstly, do I get access to them? Secondly, are they doing this themselves? Because if they're not, if I just made up the whole concept of, I'm running dropshipping stores, I think I'd come unstuck pretty quickly if we were talking in depth about conversion rate optimization and running ad campaigns and how we fulfill orders and how we, it would almost be more effort for me to have made up all of that stuff than it would to have just done it myself and learned from experience. So it's a funny one. I get it that it's difficult to know who to trust, but I think that will come through over time when you're watching someone's content. You'll start to get, does this person actually know their stuff? Or are they just saying what everyone else says? And hopefully you can see from the content that we're creating, we learned from first-hand experience. We're still doing this to ourselves to this day because this industry moves quickly and you need to be able to adjust and adapt the model quickly, which is why we have skin in the game. It's why we do it.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's it. That's so true. And I think if you talk about fake gurus and you're worried about fake gurus, the thing to be looking out for is if they're promising you overnight success or some sort of get-rich-quick scheme. From my experience, there's no such thing as get-rich-quick. And it's certainly not going to be easy if you do get rich quick. So be wary of people that are trying to promise too much. And often if they overpromise, it's very easy then for people to underdeliver. Whereas within Dropship Unlocked, and it was very clear to me from the outset when I joined, there was never going to be an easy road. It was growing a business. The path would be there for me to follow, and it would be simple steps to go through. And as long as I stayed to that path and that process, then I'd get there. But it was never promised to me that it would be easy, because there's always going to be challenges. But with a group around you, with live calls, with mentoring, you've got the support there to go on and succeed. So that's why you can really think about Dropship Unlocked as a real supporting and mentorship program that will help you to grow a business. Also, it's good and very important to seek advice from lots of different sources. So don't just take it from one person. Check out reviews, check out testimonial videos, and get a feel for what this program has done for others before. Has the guru helped people out, and has a guru helped and changed people's lives already? And therefore, you've got the backing of all those external sources that can vouch for that person as well. So make sure you do your background research as well before you go ahead and join any program.
Yeah, definitely. And I'd say, Adele, that ultimately you have to trust your gut instinct. You can do as much research as you want, and ultimately what it will probably come down to is you just being like, do I have a good feeling about this person or do I not? If you can show up with the right mindset and attitude, you'll get more from it. That's why we're very selective and why we have screening calls before anybody is invited into our program. It's because we don't want any bad apples in the bunch. We want to make sure that we only have the right positive-minded people in our community who understand that they're responsible for their success, so we can help them every step of the way to get there.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Dropship Unlocked podcast. We hope you found today's episode useful and inspiring.
Remember, if you're ready to take the next step towards creating your own high-ticket dropshipping business, our step-by-step mentorship program can help. Just head to dropshipunlocked.com/free to learn more and get started on your own journey to financial independence.
Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss another episode, and leave us a review if you've enjoyed what you hear today. We love hearing from our listeners, and we'll even read out some reviews on the next episode.
And finally, thanks for choosing to spend your time with us today. We really appreciate you, and we'll be back soon with more valuable insights and tips on high-ticket dropshipping.